Hey guys, I am Lana. This is from Corporate Crystals. We're back for another video. I hope you guys are doing really well. In my last video is a little bit of like an energy update in regards to some anchor points for how we can ground New Earth into our material realm. And those are, anchor points I'm using for myself, and I hope you guys find them valuable. But as I was looking at my own anchor points, there was this story brewing in the news, like on the world stage, and the energy of the full moon in Gemini is, still kind of floating around, and the story happened right at the same exact moment. And so I kind of wanted to get into this story and talk about it, because I think it's a beautiful demonstration of someone who is leveraging those anchor points, following their divinity, leaning into their soul path, and is just like a leader, like a new earth ambassador. And so I think it's a really beautiful story. I wanted to dig into this because I think that there's so much more to it than what the average person is probably recognizing. And that this is just from my perspective as a fan, So yeah, I'm going to share my screen and kind of dig into this with you guys. Follow along. Okay, cool. So the gentleman on the left, this is Andre 3000. His name is Andre Benjamin, but he went by Andre 3000 as half of the duo, Gemini duo, half of the duo that is Outcast. So here's pictures, just from quick like image searches of Outcast. And I think that this is really interesting because this is a hip hop group. He's a rapper, and they were massive. They're huge. They have such a legacy, and he's such a powerhouse and an artist. And I think that there are so many things about Outkast that were special in its own right. But this story has a lot of depth to it, so I'm going to kind of like dig in there. So right now it's popping up again because Andre 3000 just put out his own solo album. And according to the information I was reading, he hasn't had an album out for 17 years. And, doing some research, it looks like he had, of course, been approached for projects and different stuff throughout the years, but he was just on a completely different journey. And I really respect that. So that journey, he shared some of that personal journey, and I'll be talking a little bit about it based on some articles I found. But now here we are, 17 years later, he has another album out, and this album is a solo album, and it is a really unique album, for comparatively based on his fan base. Okay, so you'll read some of these article titles. Andre 3000 breaks Billboard record with flute song. Andre 3000's instrumental LP New Blue Sun shines at #1 on New Age Albums chart. Andre 3000 just broke a Billboard Hot 100 chart record with one of his new instrumental flute songs. Andre 3000 and his flute now have the longest song ever on the Hot 100. And then here's another picture of him with one of his flutes. And in this article, it digs in a little bit, but it's talking about how he was the, half of Outkast. He has this huge legacy. And fans were expecting when he returned, or if he returned, that he would return with a rap album, right? And he didn't. So the new album is New Blue Sun. It basically is a stunning 87-minute mind-bender, minimalist, and experimental tribal transcendent album. And I think one of the funniest things, like the first song title, it's "I swear I really wanted to make a rap album, but this is literally the way the wind blew me this time." And so I think this is a really cool story because he's a rapper, a hip hop artist who is now full moon in Gemini, illuminating a new version of himself. And why do I say that? Because I pulled his chart. Whoopsies. And his chart, he himself is a Gemini. So we have the full moon in Gemini, and he has stepped out into a new version of himself as a Gemini sun. So the full moon in Gemini energy, his story is a third dimensional, or let's say physical realm manifestation of that energy. And I think this story in so many ways is such a perfect depiction of this energy, that I just think it's so funny that people don't think astrology is real, but it's fine. It's God's language of energetics speaking through all of us. But so he himself is a Gemini, and around the full moon in Gemini, he releases this album. And the album starts getting a lot of attention, right? Because he has a huge following, he has a huge legacy. He's a huge artist. And the duality that is Gemini, it's the twins. It's duality, it's multiple perspectives, it's differing perspectives, it's dark and light, it's contrast in a lot of ways. It's like very curious, very friendly, very funky, very intellectual. It's mercurial, so Mercury rules it. A lot about data, information, and things of that sort. And this story is just so Gemini because there's two perspectives. There's the Outcast perspective, there's the fans of Outcast, and then there's the new, Andre 3000 album that is instrumental in nature. It reminds me, I listen to binaural beats all the time, and I've always thought to myself, I'm like, I wish that there was like kind of some more artists that were mainstream that were doing like more binaural beat type music, because they do just get really like repetitive, redundant. And so I was super stoked. Like, I love Outkast, but when I saw this album, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is towards my evolution as well. Like, I listened to so many binaural beats that to have an artist who's putting out an instrumental album that is, soul based, and it is set at the Hertz frequency of 432, which I'll get into here in a bit, but it's a healing frequency, which is what binaural beats are kind of like focused on and for. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, this story is just perfect for the full moon in Gemini, because there's going to be multiple perspectives on this. There's going to be the dark and the light. The dark, or the shadow, would be a bunch of rap fans who are like, the heck just happened to Andre 3000? Like, what, dude, you good? Like, is everything okay over there? And then the light would be like, wow, what a beautiful journey, what a beautiful evolution this man has been on, or like journey this man's been on. And he's stepping into a new version of himself as he evolves. And that evolution is the contrast of it. It's so Gemini, right? And I think even that duality, like, he's aware of it. Like, how could you not be? Especially as a Gemini. Gemini is a sign that completely understands that duality because they themselves like experience it. And so I believe that he was well aware of the contrast that this album would kind of like provoke, let's say. And I think that's kind of the point, because he talks a lot about how this is the most authentic thing he could release. And so I think this story is really important, and I wanted to kind of like tie into it a little bit. So let me get back to these articles really fast. Okay, so the article title says, Andre 3000 may not have given us the album we wanted, but he gave us the album we needed. New Blue Sun isn't hip hop, but it's a wavelength that everyone, including lovers of hip hop, need to be on right now. And so, you can dig into this a little bit more, but the deeper that you go, what you realize is that he just provided a healing album for the collective. He created this album and produced it at 432 Hertz, which is a healing frequency. And so I wanted to dig into that a little bit. Okay, so 432 Hertz, the truth behind nature's healing frequency. We're going to hop around a little bit on here. Music is a force to be reckoned with. Certain songs bring us to tears, while others get us exhilarated and inspired for a once dreaded workout. People create playlists for when they're downhearted, happy, and almost every emotion in between. Music affects more than your psyche too. Science shows us that it affects internal functions like blood pressure, heart rate, and can reduce anxiety and even help with digestion and pain relief. What most people don't know is how it does this. I mean, what is music made of? All sound is made by vibrations. Sound is what is heard when sound waves, vibrations, pass through the ear. Sound is measured in frequency, and hertz is the measurement we use. The way we feel and the way the brain responds when we listen depends on the combination of sound frequencies and the composition. This is known as the frequency response. This simple theory will help you understand why 432 hertz is said to make for a better listening experience. Then it talks about Schumann resonance, which I've done a video on before, and how essentially that's the Earth's heartbeat, and it's a depiction of the frequency of our planet, like where our planet is at. And it talks about how 432 is harmonic to the Schumann resonance, meaning that it is it resonates, right? So it's a natural frequency, essentially. And that's kind of like what it's getting into here is the science behind the resonance between Schumann resonance, our planet, Earth, Mother Gaia, and specific frequencies, but they're talking about 432 hertz in this one. Let me skip. So why 432 hertz resonates with humans? Okay, so musical theory makes sense, but why bother tuning to 432 hertz in the first place? Well, firstly, because it actually makes more sense from a music theory standpoint, yada, yada. But on a more primitive and spiritual level, one would presume it optimal to play music in alignment with our planet, with nature, organic, divine blueprint. We know that prolonged exposure to certain frequencies can cause us to feel adverse physical effects. Think for a moment about all the frequencies that travel through your brain on any given day: cell phones, Wi-Fi, 5G, radio, microwaves. All these devices transmit at different frequencies. These man-made inventions are constantly penetrating our brains with different frequencies. It is no wonder the devices that emit artificial electromagnetic radiation have been linked to cancer, depression, insomnia, and even miscarriage. Also consider the repelling frequencies of car alarms, speaker or microphone feedback, and the dental drill. Then consider natural frequencies such as birds singing, leaves rustling, rain, ocean breeze. Do these things bother you or comfort you? These everyday vibrations made by Mother Nature resonate with our being. They have, over the centuries, inspired the creation of instruments. Think the wind whistling through a hollow tree, and then consider the creation of the flute, just like Andre 3000. It makes sense that by listening to music tuned to 432 hertz would make us feel more calm and balanced because it's in our DNA. We come from the earth, we are part of the earth. So it resonates with the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic frequency of our planet. So the actual frequency of the music is connected to earth and connected to healing not only the planet, but also ourselves, our physical vessel. Okay, so essentially it's going to start getting into something else. And you guys can dig into it. I'm going to have the links in the description. But it then goes into how currently in the, I would say like in the modern music industry, which we could say the Western world, but you know, I haven't done enough research to like know where it's at. But for sure in the Western world, there was a standard that was set. And I think it said it started around like 1900, something like that. And it's still into existence today. And what happened was the music industry, let's call it, started standardizing a lot of their music production on the frequency of 440 hertz instead of 432. And this is really interesting because when you go look back at like ancient times, Egyptian times, and other, you know, ancient civilizations, when they find artifacts in nature, the frequency that is produced when using those instruments from, you know, centuries ago are 432 hertz. So all those years ago, the instruments were producing music at the 432 hertz frequency. And so it kind of like was standard, right? Because we see how long ago that frequency has been utilized to make music. Well, then all of a sudden the 1900s come and there's a new standard that was kind of like put into place where the music frequency was shifted away from 432 to 440. And you can do research on this yourself. There's tons of conspiracy theories and things of that sort, obviously. But basically what it really comes down to is 440 hertz is not an organic or natural frequency. It is not in resonance with the earth. It is not in resonance with our physical DNA. It's not organic. And so randomly, the music standard shifted to a inorganic or not resonant frequency. Interesting, right? Per usual. So it's like another matrix. It's another matrix. So what I think is going on here is I've talked before about musicians and how there's musicians of the light and musicians of, the dark or whatever. And what I really think it comes down to is musicians who sell their soul. They're kind of giving their creative freedom away because they're saying the money, the fame, and all of that, the ego is more important than the soul in long and short, right? And so by saying that, they're giving all their creative freedom away because your creativity is your life force energy, which connects you to God. So by you selling your soul, you're no longer connected to God's source energy and your life force, your creative life force energy. So you are giving your vessel away to basically be like a puppet. And then you're also giving your creative freedom away because they're going to tell you what to do, tell you how to show up, etc. And then my guess is they also have you produce music on a specific frequency, which potentially could be 440. And then when you do not sell your soul, you have creative freedom. You have creative freedom to not only express yourself through your own creative life force energy, creative freedom, then you also can produce your music at a specific frequency, which 432 hertz would be the organic choice versus the inorganic 440 is my guess. And by making that choice, you promote soul healing, organic connection. You're promoting divinity. So we've got divinity, and then we've got artificial, right? So when we talk about, in the New Earth video, I was talking about some of the anchor points. And I think there's some really key aspects of this that I'm going to dig into in a moment. So let me go back to these articles. Okay. So this is again, these links you can dig in yourself, but this is a GQ article, and there's also a video, and I think the video has more information. They leave some important parts out in this article. So check out the video for a long interview of this if you're interested. But basically, this is digging into just like Andre right now, his intentions around this video, or sorry, around this album and things of that sort. And it gets into a lot of really interesting points. And it's a long article, so I'm not going to like read through it with each one, but I wanted to ensure that I reference it because I'm going to talk about it. And then this is the last piece that I wanted to talk about because, or reference this article because I'm going to talk about it as well. As he's been journeying behind the scenes as a human being, a soul on this planet, just living his life, he has been going through a lot of different experiences that, he's kind of promoting right now. And one of the experiences that he is talking about is his ayahuasca, let's call it like ceremony that he participated in. And, I'm going to read the title and then like one of the paragraphs. The title, Andre 3000 transformed into a panther during his first ever ayahuasca high. And then if you read this paragraph, it's him talking about it. I was actually in Hawaii and it was my second night of the first time I'd ever taken ayahuasca. We did it like a 3-night kind of phase. The first night was inviting and beautiful and the most powerful love and connection with all things I've ever felt in my life. The second night was different, and everybody knows that Aya will do that to you, or do you that way. The second night my stomach was hurting, my mouth contorted like a panther, and I actually turned into a panther. And I was doing like grrr, that kind of thing. Okay, and that's the rest of the article. So I'm about out of here. So a lot of information, but I wanted to dig into this, okay? So when we talk about the anchor points of New Earth that I referenced, we're talking about love, soul, unity, healing, service to other, and organic. And I'm going to dig in how Andre 3000 is demonstrating every single one of those right now. And I think he's doing it in a really courageous and beautiful way. And I just think he deserves some recognition because he's a literal leader. Like, he's a New Earth ambassador. He's a leader. He talks about his age and how he's now 48 years old. And although I think that's very young, still I understand that he's like a legacy. He has a legacy that he's already built, right? And he's stepping now into like a leadership role. I'm sure he's aware of it, but maybe he isn't aware of like how important it is. Because by him stepping into this leadership role, it is him choosing love, self-love, and then love of the collective, right? He talks about how before Outcast, he was going to go to art school. And so Outcast was kind of a deviation from like his original plan, maybe some could say, right? And so he's talking about how now he feels like he's kind of coming back to that art school version of himself. And I think that's really beautiful because there's a lot of pieces of, everyone's story that can probably connect to the like feeling of coming back home to yourself a little bit. And so he not only is a demonstration of that, but he's also putting it out there for people to connect with, which is the love of the collective. Looking fear in the face, because he is, I'm sure, well aware, especially as a Gemini sun, of the duality of perspectives that this will provoke. And he also talks about it in some of these articles where he brings some of his friends in to give feedback about the music, and he's got rappers who are like, dude, are you gonna throw some beats on this? Like, what are you doing? And so like he's well aware of the opinions of like respected musicians that he's reached out to already. So of course he knows what the collective will feel as well. So he's looking fear in the face to authentically express himself out of self-love, out of love of self, love of divinity, right? He understands his soul and he's following a soul path. I think it's really beautiful, which leads me to the next bullet point of soul. He's tapping into his authenticity at this stage in his life and dissolving chunks of his ego. And I think that is, again, another demonstration of someone stepping deeper into an initiation on their soul path. His ego, or the perceived ego that the collective has of him, would be that he's a rapper, right? He's a hip hop artist, and an incredible one as well. And this is, again, a line in the sand. And he talks about like, who knows what the future holds? Like maybe he'll rap again. But at this stage, in this moment, this is who he is. And so he's choosing to dissolve chunks of his ego, understanding that there will be people who will not understand. And that's just part of the package, right? Part of the deal. The next bullet point is unity. So he's choosing to come out of, I don't want to say hiding. I don't think he's been hiding, but coming back out into the spotlight and connecting with people again, connecting with community again, and choosing to unite people through music, which, as a big music fan myself, I completely understand the power of music. And so I think it's really powerful that he's choosing to do this, especially with the magnitude of the influence that he has from his legacy with Outkast. I think it's really cool. So he's leaning into unity as well. Because from my perspective, there's a lot of individuals who have a lot of influence and they don't do anything with it. there's a lot of individuals who have influence and they do things that don't promote self-love. They promote insecurity and they promote fear and make people feel less than them. And he's doing the exact opposite. It's almost like he's taking such a stance to say, like, this is the new me, take it or leave it, but this is me. And that gives so many people permission to unite not only with him in connection and community, but also stand in their own power and be their own authentic self and unite with those around them and see individuals as these evolving souls and transforming souls. You know, we're not one size fits all. We're not cookie cutter. We evolve and we change. And I think he's a really beautiful demonstration of that. And he's promoting unity through like his demonstration as leadership. The fourth bullet point is healing. His music is literally set at 432 hertz, which I've explained already, and you can dig into yourself, which is a healing frequency. And it also is a frequency that I use myself pretty consistently. So I have like a personal connection to like what he's doing here. And another really important thing is people who are unaware of the power of frequency, because everything is energy and vibration frequency. He is leveraging his influence and his fame to promote healing, to heal energetically people who aren't even familiar with the fact that that's what's happening to their body. But every time you consent to the music that you're listening to or the frequencies around you, what you're doing is consenting to those energetics. And so by leveraging his what's the word? Influence, he's influencing a large group of people in the collective onto a healing frequency, whether they're aware of it or not. But simply by them kind of checking out the album, they're being influenced by his music, which is beautiful because that's their free will choice. They're choosing and consenting to doing that. And he himself is choosing to align to his soul, to have his music produced at that frequency to promote healing and soul evolution instead of the opposite or the standard, which is disharmonic to not only the planet, but also to ourself and our physical vessels, right? The fifth bullet point is service to other. I've talked about the leadership aspect of this already, but he talks a lot about mental health and his own mental health journey, which I'll get into in the last point, but he's sacrificing pieces of himself. And this is something that I think a lot of people like don't understand is, I don't know, I've just always kind of been the person who just looks at celebrities and Hollywood and all of that. And I feel bad for these people. Like, I know in a lot of ways they have like, there's a lot of blessings that come with it too, but they have no privacy. And they are put in these situations where like people with mental health issues stalk them. Like paparazzi are literal parasites. They're energetic parasites that steal off of, like, they're energetic parasites that take photos and videos of people in Hollywood, and then the collective who feed into tabloids and paparazzi photos and kind of like pop culture in that way. They're parasites that are kind of like feeding that entire industry, which is a matrix. And I think a lot of people don't understand how toxic it is. Like, it's very clearly toxic. A bunch of famous people have addiction issues and mental health issues, and the collective just sit there and bash on them and hate on them and view money as like having a lot of money should make you happy, so they're not allowed to complain or something. That is not how this works. This entire thing, that is not how it works. It's a very, very lack mentality way of thinking about it. These individuals are sacrificing pieces of themselves to promote their art. They're creatives in a lot of ways, right? And just because you're a creative or an artist should not mean that you have to sacrifice your whole life and your privacy and your human rights and be chased down by paparazzi and have your life threatened, frankly. And I think that when you're talking about service to other, by him stepping back out and serving the collective in this way, he talks about how he doesn't like the attention. He literally says, being famous kind of sucks. And I think that's a very big shift in consciousness that a lot of people need to hear and wake up to. Like, I don't understand. I've always kind of just thought how it's really scary. It's really scary the way that people treat celebrities and like famous people and Hollywood. And it's like energy harvesting. So the celebrities and famous people, they all are, you know, whether they intend to or not, they're getting tons of energy and attention from the collective. And that can be leveraged in a positive way or a negative way, right? But the collective, they either talk mad smack about these people simply because they're probably jealous. You don't know these people. You don't know anything about them. You've never had a conversation. So you're simply basing your entire perspective off of what you see and what the media manipulates and things like that. It's not reality. And then simply because these people are in the spotlight, the collective feels as though by them being there, they chose that. And so they have to deal with their privacy being minimal and all these things. I find that to be incorrect. That's not how God designed this to be. God would never want an individual's human rights and privacy to be put in a compromised position in order for them to express their divinity, right? Like if you have a soul path and it's requiring you to express your creativity, or that's like, you know, something that you feel guided to do, I feel like that's a matrix that in your head, in order for you to express yourself in that way, which is your divinity, it is your life force energy, right? In order to do that, you have to give up huge chunks of your life. You have to give up your privacy, and you have to be a part of a matrix that is Hollywood and paparazzi and all these things. That is a parasitic energy harvesting matrix, if I've ever seen one. And so I think the collective needs to stop feeding it. And I think by him coming out and being in service to other, it's not only in service to the collective to help them shift their consciousness by saying things like being famous kind of sucks. It's also trying to help the collective understand like it's not as great as it looks, one. And then two, he's standing up for other celebrities, because I think celebrities deserve human rights and privacy the same way the rest of the collective does. And so there's so much built into like what he's saying and what he's doing by being in service to other that I think a lot of people will miss. But simply him talking about his struggles with the attention, his struggles with fame, and how like being famous kind of sucks. I think that's a powerful statement that a lot of people will just breeze by and be like, okay, dude, like it's easy for you to say you're loaded or you're famous or whatever. First of all, you don't know if these people are loaded. You have no idea. Second of all, like that's a perception, right? You just don't know. Like maybe they are, maybe they've spent all their money by investing it back into charity. You literally don't know. And then a lot of the collective just gets jealous of the fact that these people have more than them or whatever, which is lack mentality. And so there's this separation consciousness that happens between our collective and the, I don't know, like Hollywood or celebrity collective or whatever. And that is separation. Like we're all one. So the fact that anyone feels as though they can, like, how would you feel if paparazzi was chasing you around all the time for pictures and information and all this stuff? It's disgusting. And that's separation consciousness. So anything we're feeding to like view someone as less of a human, they're separate from us. They're not a brother or sister. They chose to give all their privacy away because they're an artist. That is not how it was supposed to be designed. That is inhumane. And I think he's tiptoeing on it in a really beautiful way, in a leadership way, and being in service to other in that way by standing up for celebrities, standing up for Hollywood, standing up for the music industry. A lot of these people view themselves as artists, and he talks openly about how he himself, it's almost like this double-edged sword. Like, the gift that he has requires him, he's an artist. That's how he views himself. That's what he is. But by using his creativity and expressing himself through his art in that way, it then requires him to kind of tap into this influence that he has through his legacy with Outkast. And it's this double-edged sword, because he has social anxiety and things that make him want to like pull back away from the collective and not have that attention on him. But at the same time, he wants to promote his art, right? I believe that they should be able to do both. They should be able to promote their art and not be at risk of getting injured by the collective or by paparazzi and having massive parts of their privacy infiltrated. And I think he's kind of standing up and having a conversation begin that needs to happen, because it's really freaking weird. And from my perspective, parasitic, energy harvesting, the whole Hollywood and music industry and all of it. I think it's really weird. And so I admire him for talking about that as well. And then the last bullet point is organic. So being on the organic path. And this ties into, of course, the 432 hertz frequency. He's referencing his divinity. He talks about his soul gift and how the gift is something that it's like not up to him. This is his path, and he's following it, and he's leaning into it because that's all he can, do is flow with it. But the other part of that is the plant medicine conversation. And I think this is a really important conversation again. And he's having the courage to start this conversation by expressing an experience that he has, that if anyone has experienced plant medicine in any way, there are so many healing qualities to plant medicine. And I always promote responsible consumption and respecting the plant and viewing it as a ceremony instead of just like, whatever. And I've had my moments, like I've talked before, I definitely was a party girl. So like I've done my fair share of drugs, and I have experienced enough of them. And the ones that always kind of like felt right for me were always the ones that came from earth. Marijuana, shrooms, and I haven't done ayahuasca yet, just because, I've had a lot going on. So I really just need to like be chill. But at some point I will 100% have a ceremony with Mama Aya, and I have no doubt about that. And so I know people who have had their lives change completely for the better through an ayahuasca ceremony, through shrooms. There is so much research being done about the benefits for mental health leveraging psilocybin, which is shrooms. So when you're using these plant medicines with intention, healing intention, and respecting the healing properties of it, and leveraging the organic version of these plants rather than some of the artificial stuff that can be laced and whatever, when you're really tapping into the true organic version of like the plant and the medicine that is in the plant, and honoring that and respecting it and having it be more ceremonial in nature, there are so many benefits to these plant medicines. And so that in itself is another step onto an organic path that I feel like he's beautifully demonstrating by kind of like throwing himself into these articles to talk about him, transforming into a panther during his ayahuasca ceremony or whatever they reference. Like, anyone who understands, spirit animals and just like esoteric, like shamanic work in general, I understand what he's talking about. And I know how many people would look at that article and just be like, Andre 3000's lost his mind, And it's like, no, I think there's huge elements that he is well aware of, that he's tapping into deeper levels of consciousness. He's tapping into his divinity, and he is giving other people permission to come out and express that too. And so he himself is a demonstration of like a organic blueprint, coming back to some of nature's own healing. And the research speaks for itself. There's so much research already being done on the benefits of plant medicine for mental health. And so individuals who are continuing to pop pills and do all these things for their mental health, those are suppressing the root causes of a lot of mental health issues. And, you know, all of us on healing journeys can kind of like talk through this. Plant medicine, when done responsibly and appropriately and like in ceremony with, you know, intention and supervision or whatever makes people feel comfortable. Please always like talk to other people about it, because I'm not a professional. But it's just something that why would we ever tell people they can't do that if they feel like they're getting benefits from it? If they're genuinely healing and working through their deeper issues and they're seeing benefits, then we need to not be so close-minded to potential alternative medicine. And I'm a big advocate of alternative medicine. And so I love that he is putting himself out there as a demonstration to dig deeper into that aspect for the collective, because he's giving other people permission to do it too, which is very powerful. So he's just, this whole story, this whole journey that he is on is such a beautiful representation of New Earth in all of the, you know, anchor points that I have been guided to leverage for myself. And it's just like, it was brewing at the same time as these were kind of popping up for me. And I had to share it because I honor him so much. Like, this is a leader who is an ambassador of New Earth, leaning in, putting himself out there, leveraging his influence for good, which, if we're really honest, is very rare in the influencer Hollywood celebrity community. A lot of these individuals, not to shame on them, like, I understand, I do not understand their journey, but it looks terrible and it looks superficial and it looks fake. It looks like everybody is just doing whatever they can to feel more secure about themselves. And a lot of it is external. A lot of it has nothing to do with internal healing and self-acceptance and self-love. A lot of it looks like it has everything to do with external validation and altering themselves externally to feel more secure, probably because they're getting critiqued by an entire collective that should shut their mouth. Because if you were put in the limelight, you would feel quite insecure, and all of your insecurities would bubble up when you should feel safe. If you were truly walking in your divine path and unity with your collective, you would be able to express your divine gifts, your creative life force energy, and have the collective uplift you and support you as you do that. And you would feel safe to do that, not fearing putting out a new album or whatever, because you don't know if people are going to just sit there and talk about all of your deepest insecurities and just ignore the music entirely, right? Or whatever it is. Like, I don't understand it, but at the same time, I think the collective is really nasty to one another, right? I think that he's starting a conversation that is shifting out of the separation of fame, we're better than you, whatever, and starting a conversation for the collective to understand they're just human beings just like us. He has mental health struggles just like me. He's just another person trying to like live on this planet and operate in the best way he knows how. And he has all the pain and struggles that we all do. So why can't we like unite and support him in his own journey the same way he is supporting us in ours? He literally has this beautiful album out that I like am so into, and I can't wait for other musicians to follow his lead in their own creative and beautiful way. And I just like can't, I just adore him and this whole journey that he's on so much. And I view him as like a real leader. And he's a demonstration on every single level. And I just think it's super cool. And I had to share it. Plus him being a Gemini and the Gemini full moon, like that was a very cool correlation. So yeah, I'm obviously a big fan, but I hope that you guys see this too. And I hope you understand how powerful this is and how he is one of many. I'm, sure I'm missing tons, but he's literally grounding new earth in on a material realm level. And I am so here for it. And I'm so grateful for his art. And I also respect him so much as like a leader, an individual, and an artist. And I hope that everybody else respects his privacy and like his boundaries and just let him continue to be him, because he's such a beautiful soul. You can just see it. It's written all over everything he's doing right now. So that's my perspective. The other opposing perspective is that he's lost his mind and he's just playing with flutes and becoming a panther and all this other bullshit that people are going to throw on him. And that is the split, right? That's the split of people who are really surface level, superficial, in ego. He's not doing this because it's the cool thing to do, right? He's doing this because it's him. It's what he's being guided to do. And there's a higher calling. There's something larger than him that he is being asked to participate in. It is his soul guiding him. And so as part of the timeline split, you're going to see a bunch of people throwing shit on stuff like this. And then you're going to see a bunch of people really honoring the soul and understanding what's going on. And that is the consciousness split. That is what we're going to see, the difference between love or fear, soul and ego, right? The whole thing. So I'll leave it there. I'm going to put a bunch of all the links of the articles I went through in the description box, so you guys can check those out as you please. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. Okay, bye-bye.